I guess where this starts for me is kind of this idea of how often do you talk to someone, maybe an older relative, and they tell you about this peach pie, to go on with another theme again, but a peach pie that they had when they were younger, their grandma made it every summer, and they just can't seem to get a peach pie like that anymore. And you know, I think they might be right, because they're probably going to their local supermarket, getting peach pie in January, and well, it's not very good. It's not made with love, it's not made with seasonal peaches, and it doesn't have a lot of flavor. I like to think that you can still get a good peach, but as I said, you're not going to find it at the supermarket in January, but in August, at your local farmer's market, you are going to find that peach sitting on a table, was probably picked yesterday, and it's going to be delicious. At Floriole, we're striving to bring back sort of this grandma style of baking, where we're using what is at the farmer's market, and we're picking out the best fruits and vegetables and cheeses and produce to put into our pastries, just like our grandparents did way back when. This is, excuse me. So what we're trying to do is to bake with seasonal ingredients using old-fashioned techniques. No additives, no mixes, because we think it tastes better. Floriole started as a 10 by 10 tent at the Green City Market in 2006. It was a safe place for me to kind of test the waters to find out if people wanted the pastries that I was baking on a small scale without opening a brick and mortar bakery. Our first year was a great success, and we quickly built up a customer base, and I honed my baking skills. That year we offered galettes, which is still a signature item of ours. They're a rustic freeform tart that reflects the seasonal produce that's available at the market. We also sold things like lime cookies and chocolate cookies and lemon lavender pound cake. The Green City Market has always had some very strict rules about what can be sold and how things are grown. The second year at the Green City Market, some changes happened, and suddenly they wanted to ensure that everything that was sold at the market was reflecting what is available in this region. So that meant chocolate was banned. Lemons were banned. Anything that doesn't come from here was banned. And you know, they wanted it to be a more locavore sort of experience. This was tough. It really upset a lot of customers, and it was hard on us as bakers because, you know, a baker's used to leaning on chocolate. Everyone loves chocolate. But the great thing about this change was that it really pushed us to be more creative and to see what's going on at the market and how we can use those products that are great and local and seasonal in what we're selling. It also forced us to work more closely with the farmers, so you know, we're communicating with them and finding out what's going to be coming up soon so we can start to plan. So eventually lemon lavender pound cake became apple cake to showcase the beautiful apples we can find here. Chocolate cookies were replaced with maple pecan cookies using this beautiful organic maple syrup coming from Indiana that is just divine in those cookies. We added seasonal fruit scones, honey pecan sticky buns, and oatmeal cherry pecan cookies. I felt every time I went to the market, I saw something new and was inspired to create something new that we could use to showcase what the farmers had. So now that we've covered the great seasonal produce aspect of this, I really think it's important as well as a baker to use these old-fashioned, time-honored techniques to make great tasting pastry. So in a lot of modern bakeries, they're doing things like using mixes or buying frozen croissant dough, and we just don't do that. You know, we make cakes and there's butter, eggs, flour, sugar in our cake. That's it. You know, it's very simple, but it's time-tested and true. We make our own croissants. We laminate those, and it takes over 24 hours from start to finish for us to have those croissants on a daily basis. So I guess basically what I'd like to say is, as a bakery, I feel like we've gone back to our roots or to our grandmother's roots, and we try to emulate that. Our food is simple, and it reflects the seasonally available produce at the Green City Market mostly, and we use these artisan techniques to make everything. And so I like to say you might not be able to get a peach pie that is delicious all year long, but from us, 2 months of the year, you can have a great peach galette, and you can find it at the farmer's market or at our bakery.
And I'm going to actually ask Sandra some questions, so grab a seat. Just because I'm actually fascinated by this, and I did want to just kind of, while I was here, have the opportunity to talk to you about a few things. So we've got a few minutes. But for me, your background is quite an unusual one, because I know from going backstage, as I call it, at restaurants, that often the people who cook the savory and the people who cook the sweet and the breads are kept well apart. And often there's a lot of fighting in between. And people usually choose to go from one discipline, to be in one discipline or the other. But you have quite an unusual background in that you started as a chef and then ended up as a baker. So I'd love to hear about that journey and how it happened.
Well, it all happened in school. The classes that I really loved, I loved cooking, and I loved those classes, but I was just better at baking, I think. But I like to say that I approach baking with a chef's mentality. So I'm really terrible at following a recipe. I am notorious for changing things last minute and tweaking things, and I think all pastry should have a good amount of salt in it. And these are all things that I think aren't really naturally a pastry sort of person.
Baking is quite a precise process, isn't it, compared to a lot of other cooking?
It's supposed to be, yes.
But not with you, I'm guessing. And one of the other things I want to touch on that you just talked about, which I thought was really interesting, is the Green City Market and the locavore. And one of my issues, I think, with local is that it's very often to the detriment of the end result. It's no good saying you've got to go and buy your tomato from that guy who's 5 yards down the road if his tomato sucks.
Right.
So I would imagine that can be very challenging. So I'd love to hear a bit more about that and how you found your way around it. And you've talked a little about using other ingredients. But do you necessarily agree with that philosophy of using local even if you're going to produce a different result?
Well, I think the best thing is to have local and a beautiful product at the end. I feel like walking around a farmer's market, you can go through and you can taste all the tomatoes. If there's no good tomatoes, don't buy tomatoes. Don't cook with tomatoes. But if there are good tomatoes, by all means, buy them and make something with them. I don't think that, there's enough variety at a farmer's market or a supermarket, wherever you are, that you can really pick out what is best and use that. Use your baking or your cooking to show that ingredient off.
And I think one of the things is that quite often the rules that we have when people stop beating us up with words like seasonal, local, organic, is that it's challenging for everyone to be able to go to a farmer's market.
Absolutely.
Most people don't have that much time, and some people don't have that much money. So do you think it's just a case of doing the best you can with what you have?
We are doing the best we can with what we have, I think. And I think that goes for anyone. You can't be 100% locavore. We wouldn't be able to bake. We wouldn't have sugar. And what would we do without olive oil? Or else, what would we do without a little bit of lemon in pastry? You need that acidity to make an apple pie. So yes, you do the best you can, but you don't close the doors to all other food, I think.
So it's just a common sense approach, really.
Yeah.
And really the final thing I wanted to ask, one of the things I've noticed again as I travel, and you meet bakers of all different types and persuasions across the world, is that tradition is very important, but so is the ability to train and create something for the next generation. And I think of all disciplines in the food world, baking is one where you see people training. And I just wondered how that fits into kind of the Floriole philosophy and your own philosophy, the people who taught you and how you're trying to pass that forward.
Well, I feel very lucky to have started out at what I think is one of the best bakeries in the country, and that's Tartine Bakery. And
that's in San Francisco.
In San Francisco. And the philosophy that we kind of live is what I learned there, and using the local products and having an environment that is a good place to learn. So at Tartine, we always had lots of kids coming through. I guess I was one of those kids. Going through and learning, and we try to do the same thing at Floriole. We have stages coming through almost every day. We have somebody different in the kitchen, and they're there with us for about 8 weeks or so. And as somebody in the food business, it's part of the responsibility is passing on the information and letting those kids come in and learn from us. And they also have some things that they can teach us as well. I think it's not just a one-way street.
Great, well, thank you. And one final thing, as I didn't ask Claire, but I will ask everyone else, what's your favorite smell?
Oh boy, you know what? I love the smell of the sugar that's coming off of a pie when it hits the sheet pan and it sort of caramelizes. So it's a sweet smell, but it has a sort of savory, burnt caramel smell.
So, ladies and gentlemen, with the thought of smelling the caramel, Sandra Holl, thank you very much.